Thank you, Brandis, for the nice introduction. Thanks for inviting me to be part of your day today. What a great lineup of speakers, and I'm just thrilled to be part of this day with you all. My name, as Brandis said, I'm Rusty Goodwin from the Midstate Group here in Virginia, and I want to talk to you today from my side of the table. I've been in risk management for years and years. In fact, Brandis and I were on opposite ends of the spectrum, but we're both risk managers, and frankly, as business owners, you guys are risk managers as well. And I want to look at that today together on how we can best improve our risk posture, especially when it comes to the idea of cyber security, cyber compliance, and cyber liability. Now, the principles we'll talk today are great across the spectrum, but we're going to kind of hone in on the digital and data privacy and cyber world, since that's what Tech Day is all about. So we're going to talk about some different types of decision makers today. I'm going to dive right into it because I don't want to take a ton of your time. Give me a minute to share my screen here with you. And we're going to talk about disaster, desire, and dollars versus data, making data-driven decisions to strengthen our risk posture of our businesses, to strengthen the risk posture of your business. So let's dive right in here. Over the years, I've found the four most common types of decision makers are disaster-driven, desire-driven, dollar-driven, and data-driven. And we're going to take a quick look at each of these. So let's talk about the data-driven decision maker first. Now, real quick before we dive in, I want to make sure you understand that as a business owner, you created something that's providing an income for you, providing an income for your employees. We'll call it the golden goose, so to speak. And it's always amazing to me how the attitudes can be so vastly different between how we view our businesses and even how we view some of the things in our personal life. So the disaster-driven decision maker often won't do anything until it's too late, or thinks it will never happen. And then unfortunately it does happen and it's too late to do anything about it. But let's take a look at, would you think it would be a good idea in your personal life to not buy car insurance until after you had a wreck, or to try to get homeowners insurance after your house burns down, or to try to buy flood insurance after the tsunami wipes it out? So you'd say, of course not, that's crazy. Well, and you'd be right. But the problem is we have a lot of business owners who take the exact opposite mentality toward their business. So 60% of small to medium-sized businesses go out of business within 6 months of a breach. And here's some of the reasons why that happens. Number one, 68% of those businesses don't have cyber liability insurance of any kind. And if you look, this one's really scary. 85% of you guys don't practice any kind of basic cyber hygiene. That would be like if I said 85% of the people don't lock their car doors when they go to the shopping center. 85% of the people don't lock their businesses up at night when they leave for the day. 85% of the people don't lock their homes when they go on vacation. You'd say that's nuts. You'd be right. It is nuts. But yet that's how we treat our businesses. 85% of y'all aren't even practicing the very basic steps of cyber hygiene to protect your data and to protect your companies. And what's really scary is almost half, 48% of all cyber attacks are against small to medium-sized businesses. So what the data tells us here is, hey, maybe waiting to the last minute, wait and see attitude, or being reactive instead of proactive isn't the strategy, shouldn't be the driver for our decision-making process. So that's a brief overview. That one should be super obvious to everybody. If it's not, call Brandis or me right away. You need help. Let's look at this next type of decision maker, the desire-driven decision making. And I find this a lot, and especially we allow our preferences or even our disdain for being told what to do drive our decision-making process instead of letting common sense rule the day. So let's take a look at some of these. IBM tells us that 75% of CEOs use applications that are not approved by their own IT people. In other words, I'm too important. I'm going to do what I want. You can't tell me what to do. And typically, the higher up you go in an organization, the less compliant those employees want to be. And leaders often think they're too busy to comply, too important to comply. Again, they kind of take a hybrid from the disaster-driven model where I don't think it's ever going to happen to me. Frankly, some leaders just think they know everything, and they do know a lot. They've created a successful business. They have, made a profit, hired employees, invented things, invented processes or products that have made them wildly successful. But it still doesn't mean you know everything. And so the desire-driven mentality can be quite dangerous because we allow our preferences to get in the way of what might be appropriate for the strategies for our business to stay protected. So let's look at what the data tells us here. 95%, almost 94% of all malware attacks come through email, through the accounts of people who say, I don't want to click the extra button. I don't want to take the training. I'm too busy. I'm too important. It takes, and then once those bad actors are in there, it takes an average of 197 days to even know they're in your system. And then once you find it out, it takes another 69 days to fix it. So if you think you're too busy to click an extra button or too important to take a 5-minute phishing training, are you too busy to be shut down for 6 months? Are you too busy to have your bank account stolen? Are you too busy to have to pay forensics and pay notification fees, which we'll get to here in a minute? And the other thing, CEOs and board members in recent years have been found personally liable for data breaches. In other words, they got to write checks out of their own checkbook with jury awards and civil court awards under the auspices of duty of care or fiduciary care. So our preferences now, our desires are winding up potentially costing us a ton of money and a ton of disruption. And a breach can also have you find the need to file claims on some of your other insurance policies that you've paid for, now probably making those premiums go up the next time you renew. So the best advice I ever got, and the best advice I ever give, is get over yourself. Sometimes we need to push aside our preferences and desires to really do what's best for the company. I know that's a hard pill to swallow, and you don't know me, but I've just seen it time and time again where people who think they're too busy or too important have caused catastrophic damage to their golden goose and wish they had done it differently. Let's look at the dollar-driven decision. Now, I want to give you guys some grace on this. This is a hard one because this is a real one, right? It's easier sometimes to be able to say squash your desires or preferences down, but if you don't have any money, you don't have any money. Or if you don't have enough money, you don't have enough money. But sometimes, a guy told me once, there's a time to spend and there's a time to save, and the wise person knows the difference. So here's where we've got to really say, where do we have to put our dollars? And sometimes it's not always about what's the cheapest or what's free. It's about what's best. So many leaders, and I'm kind of separating out the ones you don't have the money. I get it. But if you're taking the miserly approach or the stingy approach, let's just take a second thought here, because many leaders think insurance is too expensive. I go back to say, really, how expensive would it be to replace your home or your car without insurance? So that's just something you need to change your thinking on. Many businesses, close your ears, Brandis, this is going to make you sick to your stomach, don't have any budget whatsoever for IT security. That's something that in this day and age just has to change. If you don't know how to go about doing that, get with Brandis. Her team can help you. Her team at DigeTeks can help you. Many leaders believe there's no return on investment for cyber risk management. Well, let's look at what the cost could be, right? If you have over 50,000 records, the average breach costs $6.3 million. Just to notify everybody in your database that you had a breach, that cost is about an average of $176 per record. So met with a CFO of a large medical firm, asked them how much it would be if all they had to do was pay notification for everybody in their database, did the math at 176 times the database, $37 million. I said, do you think 37 million would be a bankrupting event? He said, yeah, it would be bankrupting. So even a simple password compromise attack can cost just under 400,000 average. Average data breach across the board is about 3.8 million. And look at this last one. You'd think that ransomware would be a lot higher, but here's why it's not. The bad guys, once they get in your system, pretty much know how many dollars you have. So we're talking dollar-driven decisions. They're making dollar-driven decisions as well, and they want to make sure they get those dollars. So if they know you have $75,000 in your QuickBooks account, they're not going to ask you for 10 million. They're going to ask you for 75,000 because their goal is to get in, get out, and get that money. So as you're trying to protect your dollars and watch those dollars, just know the bad actors are watching your dollars too, and they know how much you have and they know exactly how much to ask for. So where does this leave us? Well, we want to be able to be in that cadre of folks that makes data-driven decisions. But how do we do that? Well, there are 4 basic tools for risk management, and I'm almost done. If your eyes are bleeding, I'm almost there. We can avoid the risk that we can. Now, we can't avoid all risk, right? We can't even be open for business if we avoid all risk, because we can't unlock the doors, we can't turn on the computers, we can't do anything. That's the only way to avoid risk, but then we're not in business anymore. So the smart thing is to work with your team, work with Brandis, work with folks like me. What risk do we have to accept? We've made the short list of risks that we can avoid. What risks do we have to accept? Well, once you come up with that list, then it's important to understand what those risks are and how they work and what the liability behind it is. And once you have that working list, now the next tool that we use is reducing that risk, right? There's a risk of an accident in your car. So the way that we reduce that risk is we put seatbelts and airbags and sensors. We put all these tools in place to reduce the risk of the impact of a car accident, and a lot of tools in place to even reduce the chances that we'll have one to begin with, right? The lane control, the automatic braking. But the seatbelt doesn't do us any good if we get in the car and don't put it on. So once we come up with these risk reducing factors, we've got to make sure as leaders that we're modeling the behavior down the line of how we want people to behave to reduce this risk. So we're avoiding the ones we can, we're accepting the ones that we have to, we're reducing those risks as much as we can. And then at the end of the day, the last tool we have, when all hell breaks loose and everything unexpected that we, despite our best efforts, still happens, we transfer that risk either to an insurance carrier or to maybe vendors help share that risk by way of our contracts. But we make sure that when the chaotic and catastrophic and unexpected happens, that we do have a tool in place to transfer that risk so that we can be made whole, can stay in business, and can make sure that our golden goose isn't cooked, so to speak. So this is basics of how you make data-driven decisions. If this interests you at all, get with Brandis at DigeTeks and her team right away. They can help you formulate this plan, and I work with them a lot with them and their customers on the insurance and risk management piece, on how to make sure at the end of the day, when the bad stuff really happens, that we've got your back. Thank you for giving me a few minutes of your life today. If you'd like to connect with me, I believe Brandis is putting up a QR code, but here's my Calendly link, and feel free to reach out and book a quick consult with me. Again, Brandis and team, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this tech day. It's always such a privilege to be in this lineup. And I hope that if you glean a few things today, let Brandis know. It's been a privilege to share with you today, and have a great rest of National Tech Day. Take good notes, and I'll end this. Let's make sure that your golden goose doesn't get cooked. We want you staying in business for a long time. And again, my name is Rusty Goodwin from the Mid-State Group. Have a great, great day.